So when my son Covey was 8 years old, I went into school with him to talk to his teacher. And she was asking me what my job is. And I started to tell her. And Covey rolled his eyes with boredom and said, "Oh, basically, miss, my mum just gets paid to talk about sex all day long." Well, from that moment on, the teacher avoided me for the rest of the year, thinking that I'm actually a sex phone operator. But technically, Covey is correct. I do get paid to talk about sex because I run a charity for HIV prevention and sexual reproductive health. And one of the many brilliant things about my job is that it has given me a real level of comfort to be able to talk about sex without embarrassment. And I have to tell you, that's not necessarily how I grew up. Now, we may not like to talk about sex that much, but we certainly like to think about it. According to Google, men like to think about sex, oh, you're laughing already, every 7 seconds. So if Google is correct, that is 3.8 billion times that men think about sex around the world. But hey, I'm a woman, and I like to think about sex too. But perhaps I think about sex just a little bit differently to the way men do. I certainly think about the physicality of sex. I think about my sexuality. But I also think about my body. Before my period started, I wanted to know if they never started, did that mean that I couldn't have kids? And when I started dating, when I had my period, did that mean I couldn't have sex that week and I was going on a hot date? Now, when I got married, I was asked if I would go and speak to an elder about how to be a good wife. And one of the things that she told me is that when I have my period, in the eyes of the religion, I am unclean. Unclean. This biological, most natural, uncontrollable thing makes me unclean. Now, what does that mean in my marriage if I have my period? It means that my husband and I would need to sleep in separate beds that week of my period. It would mean that if I was sitting at the table with my husband and he wanted me to pass the salt to him, I would have to pick it up, put it down, and take my hand away just in case our fingers brushed and I passed my uncleanliness onto him. Now, I'm sure, had I done this, that it would have added a certain frisson to our sex life if I wasn't allowed to touch him for a week. Now, I happen to be Jewish, but I could just as easily have been standing here telling you that I'm Muslim, or Buddhist, or Catholic, or I come from a tribe in Latin America or Africa. Religiously and culturally, we are deemed as unclean and therefore unequal the week of our periods. Even socially, if I go and buy sanitary towels, by the very nature of its name, it means that I am unsanitary. Now, in my family, we definitely did not like to talk about periods. My dad used to push his chair away from the table as soon as one of his 3 daughters ever mentioned the word. Of course, we quite like to mention it quite a lot, just to get rid of him from the kitchen table. Sorry, Dad. But another rather awkward conversation I remember having with my mum was when she sat at the end of my bed and wanted to talk to me about the birds and the bees. And she told me that the first time that I have sex should be on my wedding night. That I absolutely should not think about having sex with a boyfriend before then. And I should never, ever think about having a one-night stand because that would rain shame down on the family. Now, I don't blame my parents for their Victorian principles. I mean, I don't think anyone ever taught them anything else. But the point is that we all have to learn to talk openly about sex and be able to teach others. We have to teach not just about making sure we know how to protect against pregnancy and STIs, but we have to make sure that we talk about the physicality of sex, about sexuality, and about consent and respect, and that sex, for everyone taking part, is mutually pleasurable, not for just one person. Now, my son Covey has a rather liberal mother, and by the time he was a teenager, I had him doing condom demonstrations with dildos, and I think I have scarred him for life, so my apologies. But why is all this important just now? We are at this unique moment in time. We've just celebrated the 100-year anniversary of the incredible suffragette victory, where they won the right for most women, some women, to vote in this country. And there are these global campaigns, He for She, Me Too, Time's Up, amongst others. And they are brilliant. And I like to think that everyone is talking and listening about these issues in their kitchens, in their bedrooms, in their bathrooms. But are they? Are the right people talking and listening? Did the men who went to the President's Club the other week, did they think that Me Too was aimed at them? I mean, they probably do now. Did the men in a township outside of Johannesburg, where 3 out of 5 of them admit to sexual violence, have they even ever heard of any of this stuff? I mean, how do we reach that very last mile? And I love these campaigns and I give them my voice. But I wonder and I worry that in their broadness, in tackling everything from dating to gender power, to sexual violence, to rape, to the intersectionality of race, are we missing and forgetting that one little word that links everything together? Sex. So I ask you off the back of this TED Talk, if perhaps you could do one thing attached to your list of many things this evening. Go home and talk about sex. To your parents, to your siblings, to your friends, to your kids, to your partners. Maybe, just maybe off the back of it, if you're talking to your partner, you might have some fabulous, fun, consensual, safe, brilliant, pleasurable sex. But more importantly than that, I truly believe that if the more we can talk about it and embrace this topic, the more that it will be less embarrassing, less taboo, and I hope that it will become less dangerous. Thank you very much.